See, it was a very common thing for us to be lynched. And it was like a big social gathering for us to be lynched. I'm not talking about being hanged for committing a crime or true crime. I'm talking about simply being hanged because of who you are and what you are. Okay? I want to read this account of Mary Turner. Okay? If you don't know about this account, look it up. This is something that happened in 1918 in Georgia. Alright, 20-year-old Mary Turner, 8 months pregnant at the time, and whose husband had been killed in a lynching rampage on Sunday, May 19th, made the mistake of publicly objecting to her husband's murder. Okay, so her husband was lynched. Again, it was very, very prevalent. You read the writings of Ida B. Wells, okay, she didn't fear when she spoke out against it. Okay, it was prevalent. She also had the audacity to threaten to swear out warrants for those responsible. Those unwise remarks, as the area newspapers put it, enraged locals. Consequently, Mary Turner fled for her life, only to be caught and taken to a place called Folsom's Bridge on the Brooks and Lowndes County shared border. To punish her, at Folsom's Bridge, the mob tied Mary Turner by her ankles, hung her upside down from a tree, poured gasoline on her, and burned off her clothes. One member of the mob then cut her stomach open, and her unborn child dropped to the ground, where it was reportedly stomped on and crushed. Her body was then riddled with gunfire from the mob. Later that night, she and her baby were buried 10 feet away from where they were murdered. The makeshift grave was marked with only a whiskey bottle, with a cigar stuffed in its neck. Okay, this is what we have endured in this country. Okay, and we are even getting reminders of it today. Alright, let's read about what happened in Gina. If you've been living under a rock or just weren't privy to what happened, this happened in 2006. In September 2006, a group of African American high school students in Gina, Louisiana, asked the school for permission to sit beneath a whites-only shade tree. There was an unwritten rule that blacks couldn't sit beneath the tree. This is 2006. The school said they didn't care where students sat. But somebody cared, because listen to this. The next day, students arrived at school to see 3 nooses in school colors hanging from the tree. Alright? Brothers and sisters, and every now and again, you hear about one of us being lynched even today. That curse is still upon us today. Okay? And those students that did that, it was considered a prank. That was a threat on their lives. That was a threat. It was a travesty that would happen in Gina, Louisiana. But again, we have been cursed by God, and we bear that sign. See, the answer to our problems is not going down to Gina and marching. The answer is appealing to the God that put that curse on us. The answer is turning back to Him. But we'll get into that in part 3. Okay? I want to read something else to you. We're going to go back in history and look at the prevalence of lynching, of hanging us on trees. We bear that sign of being cursed. This is George Frederickson. It says, he wrote this. It says, for African Americans, justice was often at the end of a rope. Alright? This is in the Journal of Black Higher Education. It's from July 31st, 2000. America is a country where it was a common practice to send photographs of the lynched and mutilated bodies of blacks in the form of a postcard. Often in the photograph, the lynched victim was surrounded by the culprits who had carried out the sadistic act. George Frederickson writes that it was an enterprising endeavor to take photographs of lynched victims to printing presses and sell instant postcards to the people who attended the lynch party. Brothers and sisters, don't you realize what used to happen to us? They used to get around hundreds, sometimes thousands, and hang us from trees. They would cut off our genitals. They would cut off ears and noses as souvenirs. Alright? Poke out eyes. Cut off fingers. And then sit around and eat. Bring their kids and watch. And then take pictures and sell the postcards. This is how prevalent lynching was in this country. And you have not been redeemed. You have not received reparations. And you will not receive reparations. The only one that's going to save you is the Creator. The one that put you in that condition. The one that put your neck under the feet of those oppressors. Okay? But don't be mad at them. Be mad at yourselves, because it happened because of sin. I'm going to read that to you. Okay? Because bearing this sign alone does not prove that the African American is a descendant of the Israelites. Okay? However, the knowledge that they have been cursed, accompanying an in-depth analysis of the specific curses that God placed on Israel, proves our identity. I want to go to the scripture now. Deuteronomy 28. Because again, our story, our history, alright, is in this book. This is our history book. Okay, and our history didn't start when the first slaves came to this hemisphere. Alright, our history is written up in scripture. Alright, that's our history book. We have a long history. And we were actually supposed to make the greatest contribution to humanity, telling the rest of the sons of Adam about the true and living God. A kingdom of priests. That's what we were supposed to be. But we sinned against God, and He cast us into slavery. But make no mistake about it, the covenant that He made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our forefathers, cannot be nullified. And we will be back on top once again. But we had to suffer. Again, He said, only you have I known throughout all the nations of the earth. Talking about Israel, He said, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquity. And we are being punished. The other nations do as much sin, but look how when we do it, what happens? Because we were supposed to be righteous, because God manifested Himself unto our forefathers, and we rejected Him. Deuteronomy 15, or Deuteronomy 28 and 15, because the verses 1 through 14 talk about, hey, about all the prosperity that would take place if Israel as a nation continued to serve God. Okay, but I want to read this to you. Verse 15 reads, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all His commandments and His statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Again, these curses serve as identifiers. They are marks upon us, showing who Israel actually is. Okay? Let's go to verse 17. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. So he's saying, hey, cursed, you're going to be cursed wherever you at. You look at this country. We were in the South, and we were oppressed and persecuted. So many of us moved to the North. And what happened? We were oppressed and persecuted. You don't believe it? Read about the riots that took place in many of the major urban cities. Alright? The racial riots. Look at our condition in the urban cities even to this day. The scripture says that our kids would be cursed. Look at our children. Who has you locking your doors at night? Who has you scared to walk down the street? Who is selling all the drugs in your community? It is our children. Teenage pregnancy. African American children lead it. Juvenile delinquency. African American children lead it. 50% not graduated from high school. That's African American children. Cursed is our seed. Right. Talk to some of these young kids today and see where their minds are at. Warped. Why? Because we have been cursed. And they have not been taught. They have not been taught the truth of who they are. Therefore, they don't know what they should do. I'm going to keep reading. This is in an editorial entitled, Blacks Should Help in Doing Away with the Death Tax by Harry C. Alfred. Okay? President and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce Incorporated. He states that the total net worth of blacks is 1.2%. This figure has remained the same since the end of the Civil War in 1865. We haven't made one step forward. I know we have